We're going to talk to Dr. Pierce today as well. There is a lot to talk to when it comes to Dr. Pierce because the Lions have some injuries, and thankfully they seem like minor injuries, nagging injuries, Anson, and they got great news today as well. Yesterday, I'm sure you discussed Penei Sewell left practice,
scary,
rolled up with an ankle injury, and here is the update from Eric Woodward on X. Good news in Detroit. Lions All-Pro offensive tackle Penei Sewell suffered a rolled ankle. There are no issues. No issues at all with Penei Sewell. And Justin Rogers put out the same thing as well, that he is good. And Anson, one of the things that this football team has been benefited by through this camp is that some of these injuries, whether it's Jahmyr Gibbs, whether it's Penei Sewell, whether it's Sam Laporta, whether it's Ennis Rakestraw or Terrion Arnold, these have not been serious injuries. They have escaped serious injury thus far.
Yeah. And this is why you have training camp. This is why you have the preseason. Teams that are sitting these guys out, you're going to realize these types of injuries in actual game situations. But these are guys that want to tear your head off, not guys that just want to stop the play, but these are guys that want to hurt you and put you out of the game. So to be able to get some of this contact in, some of these surface injuries out of the way, I think our boys are going to be ready to hit the ground running come week one.
Yeah, no doubt. And KG, I'll tell you, I don't think there's a player on this team. Well, you know,
him and Goff.
Yeah, well, right.
Him and Goff.
That's what we discussed it yesterday. Braylon's guy was Amon-Ra. I thought Penei was the guy that we couldn't lose, but to your point, where you're going.
Obviously, Goff is number one.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Like, we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
But I do think there is some disagreement as who's the second guy that this team cannot lose. And I would make the argument, I think the strongest argument can be made that it is Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
Because everything is run through that offensive line. Everything they want to do, everything that they are as a team offensively runs through that offensive line. And he is the best offensive lineman not only on that team, but among the best offensive linemen in the league.
Period.
He is just one player you cannot afford to go out. At that point, I do think Amon-Ra is up there because of what he can do
chain mover.
Every situation on third down, at the goal line, everywhere. But I think Penei Sewell is right there among the Lions that you cannot have go down.
Having seen Hooker this preseason, I think that the Lions would be hurt the most by losing Penei Sewell.
Thank you.
This is a guy that, you know, our entire running game is predicated on his success. But then also, now you've got Jared Goff that I agree, he's right up there. But if you start to see Jared Goff having to be mobile because Penei's not out there, how effective is Jared Goff? Mm-hmm. How effective is he getting the ball to Amon-Ra? If he's got one less second, all of a sudden I see our passing attack as well as our running attack really kind of falling apart. And I know that we're still great. I know that we still have all kinds of weapons. But so much from time of possession to the running game to keeping Jared Goff upright, it all falls on Penei. And I know that we've got a deeper offensive line, but to me, Penei would be the biggest loss. When I first heard it was a foot injury, I was very, very concerned. Hearing this news today, Ryan, whew.
Yeah, no. And, you know, it's funny. Did you guys see the Sports Illustrated cover?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to frame it.
All right, so the Lions are on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and Sports Illustrated is predicting your Detroit Lions to win Super Bowl 59. Ooh. And who's driving the car in that picture?
Penei Sewell.
It's Penei Sewell.
Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
Penei Sewell is driving the car, and I think that's you know, obviously again I feel like Goff is in his own category. If Goff goes down, I don't care if it's Hendon Hooker or Nate Sudfeld or whatever. The season is pretty much over. Okay, I mean it just is in terms of Super Bowl championships. Okay, so we could save that conversation for another day. But as far as the engine that really drives this car, I think Sports Illustrated got this correctly. It is Penei Sewell who drives this car.
Big three right there.
Yes,
It
sir.
absolutely is. And, Amon-Ra, those are your three best players on the team. And I don't even think it's close after that. I mean, these guys are so good at what they do and so crucial to what they do and what they give this football team. Any one of those three players goes down, and your Super Bowl aspirations, I think, take a major, major hit. Now, if Goff goes down, it's all bets are off.
I mean, true, but even with, I worry about the offensive tackle production because we are deep on the offensive line. But if Penei goes down, who is stepping up at the offensive tackle position? You can't even give me a name. Like, it's hard to make up that kind of production. 1 sack in 17 games. That is hard to make up, man. So I think Penei is probably the most important piece. I understand Jared Goff, he's your quarterback. If he goes down, yes, your season is presumably over, but at least you have seen enough from Hendon Hooker to think that he can at least keep the ship afloat, if he has to take the reins for an extended period of time.
Colby Sorsdale or Sorsdal would be the backup in that case. Dan Skipper would also be an option. And again, Dan Skipper, God love him.
Yeah.
He's no Penei Sewell. Colby Sorsdal, God love him. He is no Penei Sewell.
sir.
So, and again, I do think with every championship team, you do have to have a little bit of luck along the way, Anson, or a lot of bit of luck along the way. And again, so far through camp, what we've seen, the Lions escaping these major injuries, I do think that is lucky. And I would rather be lucky than good. And, I was at a high school football practice last night, and it's funny because the tackling wasn't very great last night. And I was talking to a couple of guys in the stands. They're like, well, there's not a lot of tackling that gets practiced.
Oh, wow.
And it's the truth. Like, so, like, the only way to practice tackling is to tackle. And the only way to practice football is to play football.
Yeah.
And that's a long way to get to. These guys have to practice, right? I mean, you can't put them in bubble wrap until the Rams game on September 8th or anything like that. They have to practice. And when guys are getting rolled up on offensive linemen's ankles, you can I heard somebody say, well, what are these guys practicing like that for? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Why are guys going to the ground in practice like that? Well, because it's football.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If a guy gets hurt in football, a guy gets hurt in football. You have to practice. So I just think that the coaching staff for the Detroit Lions has done everything right throughout the way they handle their practices. You have to play the game, and if it's Rakestraw or Arnold, if it's Penei Sewell or Laporta or Gibbs, these guys have to be out there practicing football, and that's what they're doing. And if a guy gets nicked up, they get nicked up.
Yeah, and all of us that are on the show, maybe aside from Braylon, but all you guys watching at home, we've never been paid athletes, but we get back into the gym, we get out on the court and start playing hoops for the first time in some years. How do you feel that first week? Yeah.
Rough.
How do you feel that first week? And to your point of luck, last year, a lot of people have talked about that we got lucky and we escaped injuries last year. Well, that's not true. Mm-hmm. What was our big weakness last year, KG?
Defensive tackle position.
And the secondary.
Secondary,
and you got CD Deuce
You could have
gone.
said any position on defense, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
But CD Deuce goes down week 2. Emmanuel Mosley, why they brought him back this year, I don't know, because he never even really took the field for us last year. But those two guys going down, and our Achilles heel all season long is being able to stop number 1 wide receivers.
Yep.
So we're looking at the same kind of deal right now. We're lucky so far. We've got somebody running that medical room and that weight room where they've got to find fix on these guys where they're able to get them ready without getting them hurt. Now, we saw the 2 smaller injuries that people didn't focus on a whole lot last year that really weighed this team down. Yeah. The organizational depth is at a whole different level for the Lions in 2024. But, again, We need a little bit of that luck. And so far, to your point, Ryan, we have had a whole lot of luck with all of these surface injuries. And that's hugely important because these guys have gotten contact. They've gotten through the process. And again, I'm going to double down. These guys are going to be ready to hit the ground running when they host Stafford.
And I agree with you about that. Just to get back to the Sports Illustrated cover for a second. And Sports Illustrated isn't today what it was when I was growing up.
Big fact.
Or even, when I was in high school or college. I mean, to be the cover of Sports Illustrated was to be celebrated.
Yep.
It was to be big news. It was to be discussed. It was you were going to run to the newsstands.
It was going up on our walls.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I have, and I've since gotten rid of them, but I had bins and bins and bins of Sports Illustrated.
You kept a couple, though.
You know what?
Not
I
one?
can't find it. I lost a lot in a flood in 21.
Yeah.
That's
I lost a lot in a flood, but
I still got my Mickey Prince Fielder Sports Illustrated
Is
cover.
there one that sticks out? One cover?
I think the Bad Boys, Bill Laimbeer and Rick Mahorn.
Yeah, good call.
You know what I mean?
Good
Nice.
call.
That's a
Eat
great
the
cover.
Rim or whatever it was.
87 Isaiah with the finger roll to finish off the Hawks in the the conference semifinals.
Yeah.
That was mine.
I mean, there's so many good ones. I mean, we could talk about for hours about this, but again, I don't know if the Lions being on the cover of Sports Illustrated resonates today like it would have some years ago with the kids, or just the anticipation of getting that magazine cover, and again, maybe going to the gas station or the corner store and picking something up for a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
But the fact that the Detroit Lions are picked to win the Super Bowl in Sports Illustrated is kind of a big deal.
You held that point back.
You know what I mean?
Okay, you told us about the cover.
Right.
I hadn't gotten into the issue yet. They picked the lie downs, huh?
Yeah, they picked
lying
the
down
Lions
no more
to win the Super Bowl. I think is like such an enormous change.
Yeah.
It's an enormous change over just a couple of year period for this team, and where Dan Campbell has brought this team. I think that's something to be proud of, scared of, embrace, pushed away. It's interesting how many different emotions that kind of that announcement feels like. This is the most, and again, we said it last year, and this year I think we can say it again. This is the most anticipated Lions season.
Detroit sports season, period.
In the Super Bowl era.
Detroit sports season. I can only compare 89 Pistons and mid-90s Red Wings. After they had lost to what, the Rangers or maybe the
Devils.
Avalanche. Or not the Rangers, New Jersey. But those teams, like, we knew they were about to go there, and the Red Wings hadn't won in a long time. Everybody was excited about the Bad Boys. But the drought for Lions fans, multi-generational drought, is so, it's so tangible that it's been a dark cloud over all of our lives. And seeing the way that not only Detroit Lion Nation, but the rest of the nation got behind this team, it truly, to me, I just can't even, as much as of a Pistons fan that I am, there's nothing that compares to the anticipation of this Detroit sports team, this year's Detroit Lions.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're just getting so much love. I don't know if anybody saw on ESPN.com today, too. On ESPN.com, they ranked the top coaching staffs in the NFL heading into 2024. Guess who's number one?
A knee eater?
Huh?
A knee biter?
No.
Okay.
Not number one.
It's got to be Andy Reid,
Andy
right?
Reid is number one.
Yeah.
Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs are the number one coaching staff heading into 2024.
Makes sense.
Do you know who number two is?
With the knee biters.
Dan Campbell
Hey.
and the Detroit Lions. Let me just read for you what they say here.
Wow.
They've got head coach Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, and Aaron Glenn. There's not a single thing Campbell doesn't do right. He's been consistently correct on fourth down and 2-point decisions. Perhaps more importantly, his team is behind him when he makes the judgment calls on 50-50 games, as he had to do in the NFC Championship game. That's culture right there. Culture works in other ways, too. A lot of young players have earned reps and blossomed in Detroit over Campbell's tenure. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a fourth-round pick on a floundering 2021 team, is the best example. He worked his way into the slot job and has become one of the best receivers in the league a few seasons later. Ifeatu Melifonwu, who had all the makings of a bust, was a critical player late last season as a light bulb finally clicked for him at safety. It's hard to build a locker room of faith and patience like that, and Campbell has done that expertly. Some of Campbell's best decisions look obvious in hindsight, but it's easy to forget how bold they were at the time, bumping Penei Sewell, an elite left tackle in college, to right tackle. Remember how we talked about that ad nauseum, saying, what are the Lions doing? Why would you take this guy at left tackle and move him to right tackle? Firing an established offensive coach in Anthony Lynn to promote Ben Johnson, an unknown coach with no play calling experience at the time, to offensive coordinator to save Jared Goff's career. I mean, some of these things that are brilliant now, think back then.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Let's talk about Ben Johnson for a second, who is probably the best offensive coordinator on the list. Detroit's offense has been a top 10 and expected points added in each of the past 2 seasons. He's received several head coaching interviews accordingly, this with a quarterback who the Rams had to pay the Lions to take on, with a receiver room perilously thin behind St. Brown, without a single splashy free agent addition save for David Montgomery. As a non-head coach play caller, Johnson is the best in the business. And on the other side of the ball, Glenn was voted the top-ranked coordinator in the league by the Players Association. The metrics of Detroit's defense aren't as good as the offense, but they took a huge step forward in the run defense last year with a revamped quarterback room, and coverage should catch up. So much love for the Detroit Lions coaching staff, Anson. And if you look collectively, head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and throw Dave Phipp in there as a special teams coordinator.
One of the best.
I'm not sure there's a coaching staff in this league, that I would take over the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I love our knee biters. Absolutely. A couple of things that you brought up. One thing is the hindsight. When that interview hit about biting kneecaps, it was so polarizing. I mean, everybody thought that the circus was still in town and that we had just brought in another retread that was going to be gone in 3 or 4 years.
Not everybody.
Or many people.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. The Jared Goff, I did too, but there was a lot of people. It was very polarizing.
Absolutely.
The Jared Goff, everybody thought he was done. And then you talk about the fourth down decisions, another massively polarizing, consistent move that we saw out of this coaching staff. But Ryan spoke to the fact that he's had the team support through each and every one of those fourth downs, every one of those 2-point conversions. Every time Dan the Gambler has rolled the dice, he has had the complete faith of his team before, during, and after, win, lose, or draw. So the fact that he's been able to buck the traditional way that coaches call games and never lose his team, and in fact instill confidence in them for the next time they get in that fourth down, is something that I can't say I've ever seen out of a coach. I think that you're going to see it become a trend, and we've seen some teams start pushing more on fourth downs and second downs, but nobody does it like our Lions do.
That's facts. And they didn't build this off of talent. They didn't build this off of hiring the best coaches. They built this off culture. That was the one thing this whole time that they have pushed 100%. Culture, grit. I know it's a cheesy word, but they actually took that and made it mean something. They did it the right way. They went against the grain, hiring all players on their staff, former players, on the coaching staff. At the time, that was kind of unheard of. Yeah, you would get a few, former players here and there, but the whole staff, they did this the way they wanted to do it, and they did it the right way, and they took their time. They didn't rush it. They took their time. We took our lumps, 3-13. We're all like the sky is falling. This is happening again. 1-6 the next year, and then the train starts rolling.
Yeah, and Lions fans are just so used to being beaten down and things going the wrong way that last year they're not playing Isaiah Bucks.
Yeah,
and everybody's upset about it. Well, a year later, we realized that man did not fit into this new culture here.
Facts.
And each year there's been somebody that's kind of been held on the fringe at Lion playing, oh, why are you doing that? He should be active. In hindsight, these guys, year after year, have made the right decisions, no matter how polarizing they were at the time. I mean, I got a buddy, Lee McNeil, Levi Onwuzurike, Ife Melifonwu, all of these guys that they said were wasted draft picks. And then 2 years later, they're key players.
The LA Rams coaching staff, number 3 on this list. San Francisco at 4, Baltimore at 5. Interesting, Green Bay at 8, just some of the other coaching staffs in the division. Minnesota at 10. So you've got 3 of the top 10 coaching staffs within your NFC North, the Chicago Bears and Matt Eberflus. Where does he come in? I thought he came in at 30. Let me see. It's
he better be down there.
It is down there. It's like 20. Well, here we go. Keep going. 25.
Okay.
25.
The Bears will not be in the playoffs this year, and they will not be in the playoffs next year. So
most likely.
But as a whole, they're going to be way more competitive than they've been in years past. And I've been watching Hard Knocks a lot, and I do find myself kind of backpedaling a little bit on my Bears take.
I thought you were going to say rooting.
No,
not rooting.
Just backpedaling a little bit on my Bears take, because I do believe now that Caleb Williams is a lot better at this level than I thought he would be. And I know he hasn't played a game yet, but I thought the kid would not be very good at this level, and I think I'm going to be very wrong about that. I think Matt Eberflus is kind of I don't want to say joke of a head coach. There's no such thing in the NFL to be a joke of a head coach, but I did not think too highly of him. After watching this, I do think highly of him, and that team rallied around him last year when they could have been left for dead, and I do think there's something to be said for that when your team rallies around the head coach. So again, if that's the worst team in your division, if that's kind of the worst franchise in your division, and that floor has really kind of stepped up a little bit. So, I think that the division over the next few years is in really, really tough shape, really good shape. But it's
tough for the Lions.
Absolutely going to be a lot tougher. So it just goes back to, and whether it's Sports Illustrated saying that they believe you're going to win the Super Bowl, whether it's ESPN saying you've got the second best coaching staff heading into 2024, whether it's the fans' expectations on this football team, the bottom line is you have to take care of the job when the opportunity presents itself to you. If you look at the NFC right now, and I think a big part of that, all of the dogs are in the AFC. I mean, all the dogs. You could pick 5, 6, 7 teams in the AFC, and if I told you they were going to make the Super Bowl, you'd be like, yep, I see that. You cannot do that in the NFC. It is Detroit, San Francisco, Philadelphia. That's it. Green Bay, maybe. I'd like to see Green Bay do it for a full season before I get on that train.
And they have injury problems all the time, too.
Absolutely.
And a coach that can't get over the hump.
But again, you're also talking Brock Purdy. You're talking Jared Goff. You're talking Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love. Okay? I mean, those 4 quarterbacks are really good quarterbacks. But again, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen,
Justin
Herbert. I mean, the list goes on and on. And if, by the way, you think I'm crazy about this, but if Deshaun Watson could resemble anything at all, and I'm not sure he can.
I think he could. But I get what you mean.
But Deshaun Watson was a top 3, top 4 quarterback in this league.
He was
a couple of years ago.
At one point.
So, I mean, just look out for these guys. You know what I mean? In the AFC. It won't always be like that. So, again, when the opportunity presents itself, you've got to bust down that door. And I think this is the year that the Detroit Lions absolutely have to bust down that door for the Super Bowl. There are no excuses. Right now, you have everything you possibly could want in a football organization from top to bottom. Even the practice squad guys who are going to wind up on the practice squad, the depth that this team has at every position is something that we haven't seen in this city in a long time. But I would tell you that, roster construction top to bottom, this is as talented a roster in the NFC.
By far. I mean, our whole lives as Detroit Lions fans, we've been hoping for them to be predicted to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But to your point about the practice squad, we got probably 4 or 5 guys that won't even make it to the practice squad. These are going to be guys that the lower third of the NFL are going to be scooping up. And that was a position, as Lions fans, we saw our team in every offseason, waiting until the end of October or August to see who we could scoop off of somebody else's team to kind of lift up our paltry roster. But that is not the way anymore. But, you know, your point is a great one, but it's super unsettling because, of course, we finally have a Super Bowl favorite or at least Super Bowl possibility Lions team. And, of course, we have the best NFC North that I can remember in my memory.
No doubt. Right. I completely believe that as well. So